Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, I'm going to react to could the US Navy win a war with its 35,000 warships? Now, I know that the US Navy is a huge, formidable, just gargantuan thing, but I didn't realize it had that many warships. Does it really have 35,000 of them? Like, I'm guessing maybe some of these have been retired, they're in storage. I doubt that there's 35,000 active warships in the US Navy. Is that really true? If so, that is just, could you imagine what that would look like, from above? Like, let's say you were in some kind of surveillance recon aircraft and you were just watching 35,000 ships, moving as one unit. It would just look like something, out of a video game. It wouldn't look real, at least to me, especially if you had like the aircraft carriers in the front and then, the destroyers behind them. It would look insane. So could the US Navy win a war by itself? I mean, with that many warships, probably. And the US Navy has, a lot of aircraft as well, F-35s, F-16s, that sort of thing. But, with the lack of, things like tanks and stuff like that, like, could they really do it? I guess the US Navy has the mobility. It'd be able to get anywhere with the carriers, get anywhere on the planet, but, does it have the ground forces to be able to do that? This video should answer that question, at least I hope. Let's find out.
The future of amphibious attack may consist of thousands of disaggregated manned and unmanned surveillance boats, armor-carrying connectors, minesweepers, and small attack vessels operating in tandem as the Navy and Marine Corps refine a new strategic approach and continue their pivot toward a new great power threat environment. The concept is to configure a dispersed yet networked fleet of next-generation connectors and other similar boats launched from big-deck amphibious motherships. The larger host ships are intended to operate in a command and control capacity while bringing sensors, long-range fires, and fifth-generation air support to the fight. We envision fleets of smaller, multi-mission vessels operating with surface warfare leadership. People talk about a 355-ship Navy. How about a 35,000-ship Navy? Major General David Kaufman.
Okay, so there aren't actually 35,000 warships. I was going to say, because that number just sounded just unfathomable, really. So there's 355 right now.
Director of Naval Expeditionary Warfare told an audience at the Surface Naval Association Symposium. Kaufman explained it as a family of combatant craft, manned and unmanned, integrated in a distributed maritime operation. Since potential adversaries now have longer-range weapons, better sensors, targeting technologies, and computers with faster processing speeds, amphibious forces approaching the shore may need to disperse in order to make it harder for enemy forces to target them. Therefore, the notion of a disaggregated yet interwoven attack force, less vulnerable to enemy fire, will be launched to hit multiple landing points to exploit enemy defenses. This does not mean we give up the bigs. It means we use them more effectively. They are a big part of our ability to project combat power, Kaufman explained. New ships such as future landing craft air cushions, unmanned surface vessels, amphibious combat vehicles, ship-launched undersea drones, and even newly upgunned PC boats are expected to empower the emerging strategy to introduce a new, more effective and lethal over-the-horizon ship-to-shore attack ability.
Could you imagine if, everybody just got along perfectly on this planet? Like, all countries had amazing relationships with each other. All of the money that we spend on, developing weapons and upgrading warships and stuff like that could be diverted to other things. I know this isn't realistic, but I'm just thinking about it for a second. Could you imagine how much would the world be better? I think it would be. You know, with all this money diverted to other things like, I don't know, scientific research, disease research, stuff like that, like poverty, stuff like that. I don't know.
Future landing craft air cushion replacements, such as now under construction Textron-built ship-to-shore connectors, are expected to figure prominently in these anticipated missions. They introduce an unprecedented ability to transport 70-ton Abrams tanks to war and bring an integrated suite of new technologies to amphibious attack missions.
Okay, so they can move tanks.
Execution of this new strategy is, depending upon the threat, also reliant upon fifth-generation aircraft, Kaufman said. The Corps F-35B, now operational as part of Marine Corps air-ground task forces aboard the USS Wasp and USS Essex, is intended to provide close air support to advancing attacks, use its sensors to perform forward reconnaissance, and launch strikes itself. The success of an amphibious attack needs or even requires air supremacy. Extending this logic, an F-35 would be positioned to address enemy air-to-air and airborne air-to-surface threats such as drones, fighter jets, or even incoming anti-ship missiles and ballistic missiles. The idea would be to use the F-35 in tandem with surveillance drones and other nodes to find and destroy land-based enemy defenses, clearing the way for a land assault. The entire strategic and conceptual shift is also informed by an increased sea-basing focus. Smaller multi-mission vessels, according to this emerging strategy, will be fortified by larger amphibious operating as sovereign entities at safer distances.
It must be like, because the Navy is so huge and with so many moving parts, keeping track of everything, you know, must be quite a challenge. There must be like quite a long chain of command, like with, you know, many different people involved of separate like units and branches and stuff. It would be impossible. Like, what is the highest ranking member of the Navy? Is it the Admiral? I believe it's the Admiral, isn't it? Because a general, that's for the land-based forces. Is it the Admiral? Like, there's no way that he could have an idea of everything going on in the Navy. Like, there's going to be people under him that are responsible for separate units and stuff, right?
Kaufman said these ships would operate as seaports, hospitals, logistics warehouses, and sea bases for maneuver forces. A 2014 paper from the Marine Corps Association, the professional journal of the U.S. Marine Corps, points to sea basing as a foundation upon which the Navy will shift away from traditional amphibious warfare. Sea-based operations enable Marines to conduct highly mobile, specialized, small-unit amphibious landings by stealth from over the horizon at multiple undefended locations of our own choosing, the paper writes. In effect, future ship-to-shore amphibious attacks will look nothing like the more linear, aggregated Iwo Jima assault. A Naval War College essay on this topic both predicts and reinforces Kaufman's thinking. The basic requirements of
that shot there of all those ships coming to land, oh my god.
The basic requirements of amphibious assault, long held to be vital to success, may no longer be attainable. Unlike the Pacific landings of World War II, amphibious objective areas could prove impossible to isolate, the paper called Blitzkrieg from the Sea, Maneuver Warfare and Amphibious Operations states. The essay, written in...
I was just thinking back to the opening of Saving Private Ryan, like, you know, where the troops land at Omaha Beach. They could really have used those amphibious vehicles, you know, because I'm sure those vehicles have like a lot of armor around them. Like, can you guys remember that scene in Saving Private Ryan? Just how, you know, the Germans just hammered the US forces, like just so much firepower. Just, they were getting really, really like devastated. Like having some kind of like protective, you know, vehicle around them could have just saved so many lives back then.
In the 1980s, during the height of the Cold War, seems to anticipate future threats from major power adversaries. Interestingly, drawing from some elements of a Cold War mentality, the essay foreshadows current great power competition strategy for the Navy as it transitions from more than a decade of counterinsurgency to a new threat environment. In fact, when discussing its now underway distributed lethality strategy, Navy leaders often refer to this need to return its focus upon heavily fortified littoral defenses and open blue water warfare against a near-peer adversary as having some roots in the Cold War era. The Naval War College essay also seems to anticipate modern thinking in that it cites landing craft air cushions as fundamental to amphibious warfare, writing that hovercrafts can land at several points along an enemy coastline, seeking out enemy weaknesses and shifting forces. Landing craft air cushions can access over 70% of the shoreline across the world, something the new ship-to-shore connectors will be able to do as well. Designed with over-the-horizon high speed and maneuverability, these hovercraft are able to travel long distances and land on rocky terrain and drive up onto the shore, referring to a more dispersed and disaggregated amphibious attack emphasis. The Naval War College essay describes modern attack through the lens of finding surface gaps to exploit as a way to bypass or avoid centers of resistance. Having a ship-to-shore connector, which can bring a heavier load of land attack firepower, weapons, and marines, helps enable this identified need to bring assault forces across a wide range of attack locations.
I'm just kind of like split, because obviously we being NATO needs the US military to be this huge colossus that it is. But at the same time, the amount of money that's getting spent on all this stuff is just vast. It's humongous. It's just enormous. But then again, that money, there's so many jobs that are, reliant on the military spend. If the US cut down on its military spending, potentially millions of jobs might be affected. Not just in terms of the amount of people in the armed forces, but people who work for the manufacturers, like Lockheed Martin, people like companies like that. I don't know. I just don't know if is it $1 trillion, I think, that gets spent now? Does it need to be $1 trillion? Why not $500 billion? Because even that is still double what China spends.
None of this, while intended to destroy technologically sophisticated enemies, removes major risks. Russian and Chinese weapons, including emerging fifth-generation fighters, DF-26 anti-ship missiles claim to reach 900 miles, and rapidly emerging weapons such as drones, lasers, and railguns are a variety of systems of concern. New amphibious attack platforms. The effort to integrate large numbers of multi-mission smaller craft naturally hinges upon the continued development of vessels enabled by newer advanced technologies. Textron's upgraded ship-to-shore craft includes lighter-weight composite materials, increased payload capacity, modernized engines, and computer-automated controls. Also, Ship-to-Shore Connector's new Rolls-Royce engines have more horsepower and specialized aluminum to help control corrosion. Textron engineers also say the Ship-to-Shore Connector is built with digital flight controls and computer automation to replace the traditional yoke and pedals used by current connectors. As a result, onboard computers will quickly calculate relevant details such as wind speed and navigational information, according to Textron information.
Wow.
The Navy's 72 existing landing craft air cushions in service since the 80s can only transport up to 60 tons, reach speeds of 36 knots, and travel ranges up to 200 nautical miles from amphibious vehicles. The first several ship-to-shore connectors, which have been built and launched on the water, bring a new level of computer networking, combat-powered transport technology, and emerging elements of advanced maritime propulsion systems. The new ship-to-shore connectors have also moved to a lower frequency for ship electronics, moving from 400 Hz down to 60 Hz in order to better synchronize ship systems with Navy common standards. Along with these properties...
Yeah, it's the technology behind this stuff is super impressive, especially the autonomous stuff. I've been reading a lot about the AI. We've made a lot of big jumps in AI this year. And I think there's a push for... Some of the people involved in it are actually really concerned that we're going too fast. I think Elon Musk and a few other people have said that there should be a 6-month pause in AI development, which I don't know if we should do, because I can guarantee, or at least I'm willing to bet money, that if the West pauses AI development, I don't think people in China and, other potential, rivals or adversaries, I don't think they would stop, So, yeah, I don't know about that.
The new craft uses hardware footprint reducing advances to lower the number of gearboxes from 8 to 2. As part of this overall attack apparatus, the Corps is preparing to deploy new BAE-built amphibious combat vehicles by this year. By integrating a new, more powerful engine, large weapons, and digitized command, control, communications, computers, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or C4ISR system, the amphibious combat vehicle is expected to bring new mechanized firepower to amphibious assaults when compared to the existing amphibious assault vehicle. BAE Systems is now beginning low-rate initial production as part of a Marine Corps plan to build hundreds of the new vehicles. Unlike existing tracked assault amphibious vehicles, amphibious combat vehicles are 8-wheeled vehicles engineered for greater speed, maneuverability, and survivability. By removing the need for torsion bars, a wheeled vehicle such as the assault amphibious vehicle can build a V-shaped hull for additional protection. BAE Systems developers say the Marine Corps went from tracked to wheeled because of advances in automotive technology, said John Swift, director of amphibious warfare. These vehicles, if upgraded with advanced artificial intelligence-enabled networking and computer technologies, could help identify threats, protect ship-to-shore connectors, and of course bring needed firepower to amphibious landings. BAE Systems and the Corps are now preparing to fire weapons at the new vehicle until the live fire attacks achieve total destruction as a way to prepare the vehicle for combat, Swift said.
I don't know. It sounds very impressive, but I just hope that we never let AI completely, run the show in terms of identifying and eliminating threats. Like, I just don't think we're at the point where we can fully trust AI to do that. Maybe it's just paranoia, but yeah, I would rather there be a human always in the chain, to kind of like be able to override potential errors.
Mine threat. Kaufman also explained that he envisions unmanned yet networked landing craft air cushions as something which, among other things, can limit risk to Marines from a range of enemy attacks such as deep water mines. We have significant gaps in our capability to defeat 100,000 Russian and Chinese mines, which will not be laid in shallow water, Kaufman said. When accompanied by a fleet of small attack and reconnaissance vessels, ship-to-shore connectors will operate with more protection from mines and other enemy threats. While this emerging Navy strategy is, of course, intended to implement a far more effective attack strategy, it's also, by design, intended to save more lives when launching dangerous assaults into heavily defended enemy areas. Amphibious landings are marked by extremely high costs and heavy casualties and are considered among the riskiest and
Wow, that thing is a beast.
least desirable operations to conduct, the Marine Corps Association SA maintains.
Just seeing them in action is something else. It really is. Really, really interesting video. Like, there is no doubt that there is a huge amount of innovation currently going on in the US Navy, and definitely in the, the military as a whole. I just think that, the amount of money spent, is it being spent efficiently? Like, how much of the $1 trillion budget goes towards, innovation, manufacture, and not towards, potential corruption and things like that? That's what I think of, just because it's such a huge amount of money, and there are, from what I've heard, a lot of areas of need in the US, like infrastructure, things like that. If it's anything like here, it's crazy. Like, over here, the infrastructure has just, the standard of it has just gone down so much. Potholes everywhere. You're driving your car, there's sinkholes everywhere. You're constantly worried about your tires. I've had to change my tires, like 2 tires in the last 8 months, which is very, very, very rare. Like, that shouldn't happen. So yeah, I just want to make sure that the money is being spent, wisely. But obviously, as a member of NATO, like, the UK needs the US to have a strong military. And I think I heard somewhere that the US military is the big stick that allows the US president to speak softly. So yeah, that too, to be fair, is a very valid point. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.